Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Virtual Academy's fantastic ELD channel. Um, if you're new to us, every time I put down the pen, you're going to pause and write what I ask you to write, what I ask you to read, or say what I ask you to say. So we're going to do part two. This is part two. So last time you should have done part one. We did a character profile that looks something like this. If you haven't done this, let part one, two, and three of character profile go together. Okay, so make sure you do part one. So today we're going to do part two. And so in part one, this character, well, actually, I would like us to rewrite that character, character profile. And this is going to be more internal for the most part, Internal. Go ahead and copy that, please. Excellent. So the character profile, so we're creating a character for a children's book. We're making the character up. We're developing the character. And it's in that this past page, we did the external traits. So what color hair, what color eyes, how tall, how wide, what's the age, what's the gender, how do they dress? Those are all external things. Here we're going to talk a little bit about internal things, and they could be surface things like likes and dislikes, and it could be more about character as well. All right. So speaking of likes and dislikes, let's go ahead and write that down. Likes and dislikes. So by now, your character, you should have a name for your character. You should know what kind of character it is, because remember last time we were together, you were asked to draw a picture. You should know how old they are. You should know. So my character was George McTrunk. George McTrunk was my character. And I'm gonna create some likes for Mr. George McTrunk, the middle-aged elephant. Um, and I'm going to create some dislikes. And when we do start writing paragraphs about our character, we could include some of this. We could not include some of this. This is so you get an idea as to what kind of character you're going to have. Okay, so I think my George McTrunk, I think he's going to like pizza. This is just my imagination. I think he's going to like movies. And I think he's going to be a bowler. He's going to like bowling. In fact, in my mind, he has a group of friends that he bowls with twice a week. And I think just to make things interesting, I'm going to make George McTrunk, I'm going to make him dislike peanuts. Elephants like peanuts. So he'll dislike peanuts. I'm going to make him dislike hot weather. That's kind of like me. I do not like hot weather. I do not like freezing weather either. I like somewhere in the middle. And I'm going to make him dislike large crowds, crowds of people. Would you please think about your character, create a chart that says likes and dislikes, and write them down? And you could use bullets here like I did. Go ahead. Excellent, excellent. If you are in a classroom setting or on a Zoom setting, I would love for some of you to share. My character is George. So for example, I would say my character is George McTrunk and he likes pizza, movies, and bowling. George McTrunk dislikes peanuts, hot weather, and large crowds. Go ahead and do that, please. Excellent, excellent. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about um, who George really is. I'm going to talk about his character. I'm going to talk about his character. And sometimes you could, I like to think of it too, like strengths. And this is great to copy because that's a hard word, strengths. That at the end is kind of difficult. Can you repeat after me? Strengths. Yep. So there's strengths and sometimes there's weaknesses. Ooh, let's see if I can make it all fit. And if your paper does not look like mine, that's okay. You could use two papers, you could use the side, whatever. WEAK and SSES. So I have my character. Sorry, I'm going to kind of get closer. And I think I'm going to make, so this is not really what he likes and dislikes. This is more about his character. This is more about who he is on the inside. So I think I'm going to make him one of his strengths. I'm going to make him very helpful. This is for me. Maybe you could make someone very thoughtful, maybe very generous. You could make them very intuitive, meaning that they could feel other people's situations. There's all kinds of like different traits you could have. And I'm going to make him very honest. And then for his weaknesses, I think I'm going to make him a little bit judgmental, which I think we all are to some extent. Ooh, this should be an AL. I'm going to make him a little, and I'm going to make him a little bit impatient. I think I'm going to have, now if you want your character to only have strengths, that's fine. But I think some of these interesting stories or movies and books and shows that we see have characters that have a little bit of each. Right. Another word for that is like a dichotomy. They have two different things going on at the same time. So I would like you to write strengths and I would like you to write weaknesses and I would like you to give your character two or more strengths and two or more weaknesses as having to do with their internal character, who they are deep inside. Excellent, excellent. All right. So we have likes, dislikes, we have strengths and weaknesses. Here I'm going to talk about disposition. I like this. I like this word, disposition. So sometimes dispositions can be really tricky. So for example, you could have someone who's very quiet and never says hi, but they could be very helpful. Maybe you're stranded on the side of the road and that'll be the person to change your tire for you. Or so dispositions, this is how they present themselves in their self. Like sometimes their energy. How is their energy, right? How do they present themselves? Some people are very, for example, you do not have to write this part right here. You do not have to write. I'm going to ask you to pick one or two. Maybe some people are very joyful. Some people are very energetic. Some people they kind of have a nervous disposition. They always seem to be nervous or on edge. Sometimes there's kind of sorrow. There's kind of sorrowful, kind of just a sad disposition. Sometimes their disposition is doubtful. They question everything. Sometimes they're kind of pensive. You do not have to write this. That means they're thoughtful. They're always listening and thinking, right? Sometimes their disposition is they're kind of studious. They always have their nose in a book, or in my case, trunk in a book. Sometimes they could be kind of sleepy. They're always tired. Sometimes they could be, I guess, pensive is kind of like thoughtful. I put pensive over here. Maybe they have more of a creative, maybe they're always like humming or maybe in their head or trying to create stuff. They're always thinking about the next thing that they can create. Maybe they have like a busy energy. You could pick one or two of these for your character, or you could create your own. How is this person's energy? Are they kind of always stressed? Are they always kind of just kind of anxious? Whatever you think your character's disposition is, go ahead and write the word disposition and pick one or two. Excellent. So these are more the internal characters. I'm going to make a little line. You can if you want to, but you don't have to. I'm going to actually change pens as well because that's basically it for the internal characteristics. But I also want to add something externally here. And what's the setting? Like, where do they live? And is two things. Setting is a place, but it's also a time period. So I could say, for example, the setting is the beach, but if I say it's the year 3000, well, that changes everything, right? I could say the setting is a farm, but if I say it's a farm in the 1800s, well, that changes your imagination, right? So I want you to think of where your character might live. So I'm gonna list some potential settings. You don't have to use these. These are an example. So for you, a setting could be a city or town. A setting could be a planet, remember, because this could be a very fictional story, right? A planet. A setting could be in like a restaurant or a park or a store or a business, right? It could be in a region like a physical region like the coast, the forest, the prairie, the dunes. There's all kinds of places, right? So it could be at like a famous landmark like the White House, Disneyland, right? You could have a fictional character in a real setting. That happens all the time. You mix worlds, right? Some things can be fiction, some not fiction. Okay. It could be out in a different continent, like maybe Africa or Asia or Australia. It can be on an island like Puerto Rico, or you can make up your own island. Oh, Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico. It could be in a fake country. So I like Hallmark movies, and a lot of times in those type of movies, you'll find like, oh, this is the princess of Moldovia, or this is the king of Oscaria, or sometimes you see it in anime too. You'll see fake countries, fake towns. That's fine. And then so when I say a time period, an example would be the Civil War, the Revolutionary War, maybe a civil war in China or a civil war on the planet Mercury, right? Maybe you want to do something like the Old West. Like I said, the year 3000, you could do something in the future. Or you could go back a little bit, like, oh, this is from the 80s. So that could affect your character. So I want you to write the word setting. I want you to write place and a time period. And I want you to pick one. They don't have to be from my list. You could come up with your own. Go ahead and do that. Excellent, excellent. Okay, so I'm going to go down here. I'm going to go down here. And who might, so I'll let you know what I pick in a second, but who your character companions, your character, part of their disposition, part of who they are is who's around them. And think of most books and stories, and you obviously do they have friends? How many? Is there like a best friend or is there a group of friends? So I'm going to put best friend. You do not have to write this. You are going to write companions, but you're not going to write all these. Is there basically a pet? Is there a business partner? Um, are they married or is there a significant other? This character, are there familiar strangers? So for example, if you go to the donut shop for coffee every morning, you see the same person working there every day. That's a familiar stranger, right? A familiar stranger might be the guy or girl that delivers your mail. That might be a familiar stranger. Is their family, are they alone a lot? Are they loners? Are they usually alone? I think there was a movie about a guy on an island who started talking to his football because he was alone all the time, right? So, what kind of companions? So you just have to write the word companions and tell me one or two things that show what kind of people are around your character. Go ahead. Okay, excellent. And here's the question too. Do they have a job or do they volunteer in something? So you could right now put yes or no and what that is. If they have a job, are they a teacher? Do they basically clean up the zoo? Or is there even a job? Or is it maybe not? Or maybe it's unknown. You could write unknown if it's unknown. Let me write that unknown right? So go ahead and let me know if they volunteer somewhere, if there's a job for your character. That could be a student as well. Are they a student? If your character is a kid, right? They're not going to have a full-fledged job, but that, they will be a student. And the last thing we're going to talk about is, where do they live? Where do they live? What's their home? So I do want you to write home. And you could pick one of these. They could have a house, a trailer, an apartment. You do not have to write all these. They could live in a tent. They could live in a hut. They could live in a field. They could live in a garage. Where does your character live? So go ahead and write home and pick one word, or if it's not on here, you can make it yourself. Let me know where they live. Excellent, excellent. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to let you know about my awesome character, George McTrunk. George McTrunk. And I'm gonna go ahead. So I already let you know his likes, dislikes, strengths, weaknesses. I think for disposition, I'm gonna make him joyful. So I don't know what you wrote, and I'm gonna make him kind of sleepy yet joyful. Okay. And I think for me, I think I'm gonna give him, I'm gonna put him in a city, but it's gonna be more like a town. So this is mine, right? So, and I think I'm gonna name the town Cedarville. Cedarville. I'm sure there's a real town Cedarville somewhere in America. So so the setting where George McChunk lives, he lives in Cedarville, in the town called Cedarville. And I'm gonna put, oh, you know what? I think I want to put just present day. So not in the past, not in the future. I think I want George McTrunk to be present day. So just like today. Okay. And I think for mine, I think he's gonna have, I think I want him to have a group, but I think I want it to be like a regular group of friends that have to do with the bowling. Because I'm gonna make him have his social time around his bowling. So most of his friends are gonna be through the bowling activity. Okay. All right. And then here, my George McTrunk, he's gonna have a job. I think George is gonna be an accountant. So accountant. So he goes to work every day with his self-imposed uniform of a button-down shirt and tie. And I think my George is gonna live in an apartment, and that's going to be all of for what I use. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tell you about my character. My character's name is George McTrunk. He's an elephant. He's middle-aged. This is from part one. He's middle-aged. He's kind of chunky. He's yeah, so he likes pizza, movies, and bowling, and dislikes peanuts, hot weather, and large crowds. He's helpful and honest, but he's also a little judgmental and impatient. He is a joyful and sleepy man. That's his disposition. He lives in the town of Cedarville in the present day. He's an accountant, and George McTrunk has friends through bowling, and he lives in an apartment. Can you go ahead and can you share about your character with other people? Raise your Zoom hand or press pause and say it out loud. Excellent. So now you are done with part two. If you are part of the virtual academy and your teacher is instructing you to put it in Google Classroom, go ahead and do that. If not, wait for your teacher instructions. See you later. Bye-bye.